All right, in response to the request, here's a recording of how I interpret the T2122. Over a number of years, and I've been using TC2000 since the late 90s, so 20 years. And I followed the T2122 chart, which is the 4-week new high, new low ratio, which is the number of new highs divided by the number of new lows comes with that ratio. And when the new highs, new low ratio gets extremely low, we're very, very oversold. And I, over the years, found that they would get anywhere, and I used to use 10% to 20, 10 to 20 and 80 to 90. I found that we could exceed those numbers a little bit to the downside, to maybe about as low as 7.5. And if I back off, you can see how we've, on these extremes, get right on down there. I'm not trying to read it, I'm just trying to get an idea of where the bottoms are. And right in here on the tops, it gets up to the 90-95 level quite often. All right, so I've labeled these my bounce zone and my pullback zone. And the blue line here is the SPX, the S&P 500 cash. And you can watch how they pretty much go hand in hand, except you'll sometimes get a pullback here in a new high, new low ratio, but not a big pullback in price of the S&P 500. Normally they go fairly hand in hand, as you can tell here mostly, but occasionally you'll get divergences, which is why I say the pullback zone tells you you're going to pull back soon. And it did. Price actually here was really resistant about pulling back. It was in the first month of September, first part of the month of September, and then it kind of gave it up somewhere around, what was that, 20th or so. And the bounce zone down here, when it gets down there, a lot of times we'll make V bottoms. We'll make somewhat rounded tops to V tops, but most of the time we'll get extremely oversold very quickly. And in fact, you can see that if you plot those. What I try to watch for is divergences. And the way I can interpret that with this one back here in July is that we got to only 30% new highs over the new lows. But the market didn't pull back that far. So tell me what's going on. Well, what this is telling me is that the strongest of the strong, the leadership, is probably going up about as fast as it can to offset most of the decline in the rest of the market. The opposite could be true if we get a bounce and the market doesn't follow, like back over here in April. Well, the market did follow, but it had a long ways to go. So if we go back over to April, with it zoomed in. I can follow divergences in these, the slope up here with the slope down on the thing, telling us that we were probably just doing a pullback, a healthy pullback. All right, what is this telling me for today then? We're in the extreme oversold. I have seen zero, probably I've probably seen it only a handful of times in 20 years. Now, you have to remember, I was not actively trading for about a 2.5-year period during the housing crisis. I was in London working on a contract and working 65 to 85 hour weeks. So I didn't have much time to look at the markets. So I'm sure we hit, on some of those days, those massive sell-offs, we hit Zero. I have never seen 100 ever. I've seen 98 to 99, but I've never seen 100. So take that as it will. Where we are today is that we're setting ourselves up for a bounce, like John Jay said earlier. You know, there's nothing about this that tells me that T2122 will tell me how big the bounce is or how long it's going to last. It just says there's going to be a bounce, to be ready. What I use this for is if I'm short, I may want to get a little less short and cover some, take some profits. If I'm up here on the top end and I get into the pullback zone, I watch for the first sign of weakness and I take partial profits anyway when I get anywhere near some sort of target level. And at the first signs of selling pressure, I'm probably exiting most of my longs and only keeping the best of the best. So if you can monitor the T2122 for those who have TC2000, that will keep you on the right side of the market more often than it will not. All right, I am going to go ahead and stop the recorder here. Well, let me ask, do you guys have any questions on T2122 on how it's constructed and how I use it? All right, since I don't see any questions popping up there, I am going to stop the recorder and we'll get on with the rest of